Good evening from Newlands House Gallery, and I'm delighted to welcome everybody back to our fourth webinar from the gallery. And chairing the webinar tonight will be Lady Alison Myners, who is the chairman of the Royal Academy Trust. Good evening, Alison.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Nicola, and welcome everybody to this In Conversation with Ron Arad, RA, and tonight with Pierre Lagrange. This is part of a webinar series which is being hosted by Newlands House in Sussex, and it coincides with Ron's show there, which has been curated by Simon de Pury, who is the artistic director. And I'm really happy that Simon is able to join us this evening. Welcome. I think the show is going now to the end of March. It's been extended, hasn't it, Simon?
Yes, the exhibition is meant to last up to March 6th. So given the fact that it had to be temporarily closed, we want a maximum of visitors to benefit from it. And in fact, on the 2nd of December, it's the opening, and there are lots of people lined up to come and view this amazing exhibition.
Fabulous, thank you so much. So plenty of opportunity to go and see Ron's show. Now, follow this webinar tonight follows the brilliant webinar last week hosted by Charles Sir Maurice Smith, the former director of the Royal Academy, with Anthony Gormley in conversation with Ron, where there was a focus on collaboration and where the work of these two amazing artists intersected. Tonight, we're going to look at this extraordinary work that's been created by Ron in Saville Row, along with Morgan Cars at Huntsman, which is owned by Pierre. And we'll be touching more closely on the nature of craftsmanship, the artisan, working with hands, and looking where that coincides with Ron's work in the summer exhibition at the Royal Academy of Arts, which is just down the road from Saville Row, where he has a fabulous work, another extraordinary work, Oh Lord, Won't You Buy Me? Now, for those of you who weren't able to join us last week or at the previous webinar, I'll give you a tiny little background to Ron and Pierre, neither of whom actually needs any introduction. But Ron, of course, has had several practices and now practices in Chalk Farm, having hailed originally from Tel Aviv. He was the professor of design production at the RCA until 2009. And in 2011 was awarded the London Design Week Medal for Design Excellence. And you became a Royal Academician in 2013, which is where my world intersects with Ron, who is variously described as an artist, an architect, and a designer, and probably is all of those things and many, many more things. So, you know, we'll put those labels to one side. There are many works for which Ron is renowned, but many people think about his Big Easy armchair, which in 1991 heralded a fabulous collaboration with Moroso, and that was followed by Don't F with the Mouse, another selection of extraordinary chairs, and of course your public works, Ron, in Tel Aviv and in Seoul in Korea. So many more things I could say about you, but that was my little bit. And then Pierre Lagrange is the founder of GLG. He's been variously described himself as an innovator, an iconoclast, a Harley rider, a buccaneering Belgian. He is, of course, a respected collector and the owner of Huntsman, which has a history and tradition of 150 years, dressing everybody from royalty to Hollywood and to the truly blessed, I think. Now, this evening, I'm going to hand over to Ron and to Pierre to talk about this project. And then hopefully we'll have a little bit of time for a Q&A at the end. So perhaps I might begin by simply asking you, Ron, how did this project with Pierre come about?
Well, it started at the Royal Academy, actually. I worked for a piece for the summer show at the Royal Academy before the pandemic. And when the RA planned the opening, in spite of the pandemic, there was a limitation on floor space for pieces. And my piece, hang on, let me share it with you. Oops. Dung. My piece, my idea was to take a Morgan car and place it here we go. Take a Morgan car and place it on the and weave a cover, so no one were ever going to see the car to see if it's there or not, on the floor of the Royal Academy. And as you can see, the RA is there on the grills of the Royal Academy floor. I made it the grill of the car. It happens to be my initials, but that's by the way. I mean, the idea was, I mean, as I walk in the streets, I'm always inspired by the Christo-esque covers of cars. And I wanted to do a cover that has a sketch of what the car is covering. So, I mean, this is like a sketch I made that I thought I'm going to work on later. But as it says on the top there, you can't fake a sketch. So I had to go back to this sketch. And this is like a computer simulation of how it's going to cover the car. Morgan were going to give me a car to stand in the show. The pandemic started. The fabric arrived from Belgium, from Brussels, and I have to say, when I saw the fabric, it was amazing. I mean, I feel guilty because it is so much better than my sketch, although it is exactly my sketch, but it is pretty amazing. So I had to build it here in where I'm talking to you now. That's where I'm sitting, and then. Well, this is what I put under it. So it is like everything I could find. I think I showed it last time, but I'm not sure. Everything I could find at home, like cushions and a speaker and shelves and furniture, some Saarinen furniture, some Gaetano Pesce, some Moroso pieces, like a Danish vintage 50s plastic thing that was so lucky, just like the grill of a Morgan. It took me about 20 minutes to build, and I lived in it for a month. And then I was looking for a parking place for it, and I was so lucky to be introduced to Pierre, and it's amazing because sometimes you try things and you know they're not going to happen. But meeting Pierre, and I was introduced to him by a mutual friend, Alessandro, and it was perfect. And I thought, oh, much better. You know, it's because it sort of, the Morgan car is based on craftsmen, and for me, I mean, immediately, the minute I met Pierre, I mean, the connection between Morgan and Saville Row was obvious to me. How much of it was post-rationalizing and convincing myself, how much is true, it doesn't matter. But it is, I've never driven a Morgan car, and I never owned a tie or a suit. It doesn't matter. I have a lot of respect for people, the people that work in Saville Row. I mean, these are amazing scissors, belong to Dario, that was amazing to work with. That's Dario, the master stitcher at Huntsman. And of course, I knew about Huntsman from the Kingsman film and from the King's song, The Dedicated Follower of Fashion. and whoops, it was a blind date with an amazing blind date. Yeah, here we are at Huntsman, and then I thought we don't need a car for Morgan. It would be impossible to get it in there, and I'm not going to do the cushions thing again. I'll do something, and Morgan were very generous, and they gave me better bits of cars. I mean, I made this sketch again, a sketch that you cannot fake, and then I made this car, and I thought no one is going to see it. You know, it's going to be covered, and that is pretty amazing because it gives you freedom to paint with a lot of freedom. You know, because you don't, no one's going to see it anyway. So you do what feels right at the moment, and once again I got, you know, something that's better than I imagined, and I felt sorry that we have to cover it. So what we did, normally you unveil a sculpture, but what we did there is we veiled it. It was there for a week at Huntsman, uncovered, and then instead of unveiling it, we veiled it, we covered it. And this is the days. It's so nice to see the craftsmen working on the other floors. Serious people, not just these artists like me. Well, this is here because I talk a little bit about. We talk about craftsmen. I adore working with craftsmen, but I also adore working with technology. And the weaving industry is the first industry that employed computers way before the car industry. And it's amazing to know that your sketch is via computers translated into these beautiful things. You know, all these are all the colors. This is the color palette, and pretty incredible. But
Ron, what is it about artisans, about craftsmen, about tailors and metal workers that speaks specifically to your work?
I think I can't say that I prefer technology to artisans or the other way around. You know, when I worked in Africa with this weaver, he's not a computer, but I enjoy him just as much. There's a brain there that knows what he's doing, and I'm equally excited about what this guy does, which is, by the way, this stuff here, and what the machine does. I mean, I can give you lots of other examples, but I mean, to design and to make pieces is to impose your will on a material to perform a function through a process. And sometimes, I mean, last week we talked about glass blowing. I mean, like working with amazing glass blowers that are masters. And so with, you know, while working on this, I mean, I fell in love with weaving. So for the show that you mentioned, Don't Fuck with the Mouse, I wanted to do covers of famous art pieces to do with Mickey Mouse. So this is an Andy Warhol double Mickey that was, so, you know, you do the sketch and then you get this. And is the painting there? Is the Morgan there? You don't know. I mean, that's a Roy Lichtenstein. And that is Oldenburg's geometric Mickey. And that is Damien Hirst Mickey. And this is like the show. I mean, and then maybe Alison, you want me to stop here before I go to the?
No, it's absolutely fine. Go ahead.
Shall I go ahead? Okay.
Yes.
You're all aware of the controversy about selling or not selling the Michelangelo Tondo that that the Royal Academy owns, have been owning for years and years, and it was hard. The controversy was hard, and then I decided to cover the Tondo, to make as if there's the Tondo there, and let me show you the. This is my drawing of it, and it says absolutely not. I mean, I carved the marble, and I wrote absolutely not for sale. Above it, no, it won't be so visible because it will be folded over the piece. It says everything's for sale. The only question is the price. Andy Warhol, I put a question mark because I know this quote, but I couldn't find it when I did it. When I was a student, I read this, and me and my friend called the Andy Warhol's factory. My friend Andy Reichsman, filmmaker, and we called the factory, we were students, we called it Collect. We called the factory Collect, and we said, we read, I think it was Artform, that everything is for sale. The only question is the price. We want to buy Andy Warhol's name to sign artworks. Of course you can't. Yes, but look, but Andy Warhol, and the conversation went on for 20 minutes. Unfortunately, it was before iPhone and things, and we didn't record the conversation. The guy at the factory said, "What, you called Collect?" And he put the phone down. Anyway, and my friend Andy said, "We only need Warhol because my name is Andy. I don't need Andy. We have anyway." This is like and then I got where the Morgan was parked. I got the cover of the Tondo, and I took a piece of foam to sculpt the Tondo, but I'm sharing with you tomorrow. I'm going to the studio to carve it properly with foam and paint over it like I did with the Morgan.
I think it's a great joy, Ron, that you have taken inspiration from the Tondo at the Royal Academy, being a Royal Academician, because I remember at the time when this was being extensively debated. Of course, it was given to us by covenant, so we don't, it could not be sold even if we wanted to sell it. But I remember one of the Royal Academicians said that when she was a student, that she'd been inspired by the Tondo and had found it a really useful learning tool. And I think it's sort of the gift that keeps on giving. The fact that you as an established Royal Academician are using it as a kind of discussion and debate point is fantastic.
Yeah, okay, not only that, Alison, it's going, and I'm also doing a 40 centimeters Tondo made of Carrera marbles, again, carved, absolutely not for sale. By the way, I shared all this with Rebecca before I did it.
Rebecca's our president, Rebecca Salter, RA.
Yeah, yes. Rebecca Salter, yeah. And I'm happy to, if there's a way to sell the series of the fabrics or the Carrera marble, that is, I'm going to get this on Friday from Spain. Very excited. And yes, it could be sold instead of anyway. So I mean, this is like me trying to see what it's going to look like, but guess where it's going to be. It is going to go to, well,
Huntsman, I hope.
Huntsman, but Huntsman, there's an empty showroom across the road from Huntsman, and Pierre kindly negotiated with them the parking, yet another parking space for the Morgan that we placed across the street. I saw this on Instagram, someone saying that what's going on in Saville Row with more cars in the windows than pinstripe suits. Anyway, so
Ron,
anyway, so this is like this is where we're going to put the tondo. Except this is a simulation. It's going to be near the window. There's going to be a map because this is less than 100 meters away from the real tondo. So
Ron, before we go to have a chat with Pierre, tell us a little bit about the conversation between the Morgan piece in Huntsman, your piece in the summer exhibition, and the tondo, this triangular conversation.
Well, I'm very happy that I look. If I could, I mean, the conversation with Pierre started in, I think the first time I met Pierre, we greeted each other with elbows. I don't know if you remember the period that people, instead of shaking hands, did elbows. That's
the Wu handshake. Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm very much better to show it at Huntsman than but in the Royal Academy, I think you showed it, the piece, yes,
Maya, you might just show the image of it actually in situ at the summer exhibition.
I mean, this is again, this is in lockdown. It was controlled. I mean, I did it on Zoom. I'll do it very fast because I think I showed it in one of the webinars.
Yes. So it's a Mercedes. It's a Mercedes.
Yeah. And the song is where I took the name from, the Janis Joplin song.
Wonderful.
And then, wait. So this is it. This is it at the Royal Academy. And I also love the fact that because of space, I had to use a corner, which is good. I would, if it didn't have the problem, it would be on, straight on a wall. But I quite like it there. So there's the number plate, Rara, which is anyway.
Ron, let me just have a chat with Pierre, and we'll.
Yeah. Let me get out of here. Let me get.
No, you don't have to go anywhere. Stay with us. Stay with us.
Hang on. Okay. Voila.
So Pierre, to what extent do you like to be involved in a commission or a collaboration, and which is this?
Actually, it's interesting you say that, because a commission is always a difficult thing, because you don't know if you're gonna like what you've asked the artist to do, and if you don't, it's really embarrassing, and for everybody. But I think here it was, I was being very, very careful whenever I've been working with creative people not to interfere with their creativity, because then you start to corrupt their creativity. So it's a very fine line between being involved and stay away from their creative process. And I have to say, I loved working with Ron. It was just spectacular. And we have to give the credit to Alex Tomei, because he brought Ron. He said, you two have to meet. I don't know what's going to come out of this, but you have to meet. And he brought Ron, actually, that was way before COVID, to the shop on Saville Row. And Ron kind of like, he immediately went downstairs where the guys are working, or at the back where the cutters are doing all the things. And what was extraordinary is that listening to Ron talking about some of the stuff he was saying about, imposing your will on material, the craftsmanship, that is the language of the guys at Huntsman who are making stuff.
Can I add something? That the meeting with Pierre also changed the work, because we're not going to use stitches there. But you think, how can I come to Saville Row and not do cut and stitch? So what we did, instead of having one print, we had two prints, prints the wrong way, weaves. And then we cut it, and it was incredible to see how the crafts quality adds so much to the work. I remember I feel guilty for thinking, do I need the stitches? Of course I need the stitches. The stitches are fantastic. And
And
Go
it's actually, it was for me also, if we're going to do something like that, there has to be a legitimacy of why we're doing. We just don't put an artist in Saville Row and Huntsman. What does that got to do? But when Ron came with the idea of, and I love his Cristo S picture at night, like of a car cover, and it would be funny if every car cover was not gray, but was kind of a Ron Arad kind of moment as a happening, and maybe we can make that happen. But when he came back with the idea, a suit for a car, which is basically what that is, it actually echoes, and that's where the stitches were coming to, because the reason why the cutters are basically taking all the measures of a suit for somebody, and then they put a pattern, which is a 2D pattern. And then that's being assembled with the stitching into the 3D garment. The whole exercise and why they do this interim stage of fittings called base is to see how it's going to drape over the body. And what was really amazing is to see how Ron and Dario, the head cutter, one of our 2 head cutters, collaborated to see how do you have these pieces that you've stitched together drape over the car? Because we all know you can put something over a shape and it's not going to look good. And that's the skills of the cutter, and Dario actually part of the internship of these guys. I can't remember his age, but he's been in the business for 30 years, but he started as a teenage kid by stitching. You know, you're stitching for 2 years and then you can move on to a higher level of stitching. So it was for him, he hadn't done stitching for 20 years probably, but that's where he trained. And so that was really a very, very nice relationship. And I must say that what Ron did with the weaving, there was something in the way that he got the weaving done by this Belgian company that gave a 3D dimension. And so the whole thing, if you look at it, and talking about Ron's work, we're really lucky that we've got a great landlord, which is the Crown Estate ultimately, and the Norwegian Central Bank, who owns most of Saville Row together. And they've got these empty shops on the other side of the street. And so we asked them, you know, we can't keep, and I'll come back to the car in the shop, we can't keep the car in the shop forever. It would be a shame because it was COVID and a lot of people couldn't come. Can we put it there? And they said yes, which is really, you know, good spirit from the Crown Estate and the Norwegians. And so it's really going to be there till the end of the year. So as it's reopening, you can do. But what was really fun, this was supposed to be in the middle of the floor at the Royal Academy summer show, and Ron and I were plotting like maybe we should do a kind of like virtual reality where people can scan their phone and see if there's a car underneath or not. And we thought, you know what, it's too gimmicky. The beauty of it is the car and the cover that is done. But then we couldn't display it because of COVID density issues. And Ron sent me this email. I'm pretty sure he'd bet that I would absolutely say, hell no. And he sent me this email with a great picture, illegally parked. It was a montage of the window that you see behind me of Huntsman with a big sign like police sign, don't park here, illegal park, because as we couldn't be on the Royal Academy, he was going to illegally park it in front or inside the store. I said, Ron, it's a shop, people sell, they come there to buy a suit. We can't have a car in the middle of it. That's, but let me check. And so I called Taj, who runs the retail, and said, Taj, can you move half of the shop away in storage for a couple of weeks to have the car there? And he looked at me and said, we'll make it happen. And so suddenly we thought, okay, if he's really putting a real Morgan, we're going to have to dismantle it all. But the way that Ron had built the sculpture underneath, so we could take a full day to move it in, move the whole thing out. And it was phenomenal to have it there because, you know, the shop has never seen something like that. But it was great that we could move it on the side. And I really love that, you know, he got the door closed at the array for density and had to come up with another piece and this sort of thing. You know what? Let's find another solution. And I think from an artist, you know, usually when you disrupt them in their creative process or what was established, not everybody is so positive. Fine, we'll find another place. We'll put it in the shop and this sort of thing. So it was kind of really interesting. So that's what I wanted to say on that. So thank you for that.
Yeah,
It
and I have
sounds as if-
another little confession. I said before that I don't own a tie, and I never had a suit in my life. But now, as I'm talking to you, I'm wearing something that was cut with scissors. I showed you the scissors.
There's shears. You can't say scissors.
Yeah, sorry, shear. Yeah. So this was cut by Dario. Dario cut it, and this is my favorite scarf now. Cut in Saville Row. So I'm okay now.
Pierre, it sounds to me when you were beginning talking about that, is when you were talking about the element, the role played by artisans, by craftsmanship, and Ron talking about the weaving process and the people he's encountered in that transcends the sort of outward look of a commercial collaboration between art and fashion. What is your view at the moment on that intersection, on the relationship between art and fashion in the art world?
I think it's wonderful. I think if it's done in a way that you can reconcile the artist ethos and don't, lowering down to a level that becomes too commercial, it's wonderful to be in a position where art can become wearable. And, for instance, we've done a couple of things with people, and we had commissioned Ed Rouchet for a charity work a couple of years ago where you could reproduce a painting inside on the lining inside a jacket. So you would not see it from the outside, but inside you have your own painting. Very subtle and wonderful. At the opposite hand, I think some of the stuff that LV has done with Yayoi and with some other people, or what's it called, the one who have done with Magritte, they've done some super tasteful thing. And I think it's pretty cool. I really like when you get crossing between different disciplines. We're working on a collaboration that we will announce next summer with a fashion house, which is exactly that, because it gets you out of your boundaries. And so you have to have the respect. That's what I really love when, when people realize who was the guy with the hat, with a nice smile, who was walking around the tailors downstairs, and they realize this is who it is. And it's quite cool, and he actually was really interested in what we do. And that's what you really want to have, is that there's that level of interest in the craftsman. And craftsmen around the world, they talk to each other, they speak the same language, and that's what's special. So I think arts, craft, if you can do that all together, it really works. Sometimes it doesn't, but it's pretty obvious. But I'm all for it.
So in some ways, you're a trailblazer for breaking down the boundaries of where art can be exhibited.
What boundaries?
Gone already.
Well, I don't know if I don't think I'm a trailblazer, actually. Even at Saville Row, at Huntsman, they've done things way before me, experimenting new things. I also see, I'm more like Japanese philosophy, like where I see art everywhere, but I also think that it's really good to be surrounded with beautiful things. And, coming to you, Taylor, coming to a place like Huntsman, which has been there forever, it's an experience. So if you can have more beautiful things around, if you can have art on the walls or art in the rooms, it's part of a great moment that you can spend there.
And do you think that we are in danger of losing these fine skills, these artisan skills, these craft skills? Is that in danger, or do you think that we're actually coming around to recognizing the beauty of these things?
I think it's always a danger, because it's a lot of work for these guys. You know, I was saying Dario has been doing that since he was 16 probably, and his father is the best shoemaker, bespoke shoemaker in London. So it goes from generation to generation. And we've got one of the best tailor who's got 3 generations of them working with us right now. It is in danger because it takes time to do, it takes time to learn, but we see more and more people, and it's kind of very similar to the sort of the hipster moment, the sort of the people who care about what they do, they care about the purpose, and they love making beautiful things. I think that's what's really interesting. And so before the pandemic, we definitely had more people interested from all kind of backgrounds, by the way, not only people who have a lot of choice, who basically wanted to learn how to make stuff. And I don't think it's only in our world. It's learning how to make stuff is like, it gives a purpose to many more jobs where you don't make anything. So we're in a position where people can see the fruit of their work and their skills. So there's danger, but there's a lot of hope we see. And if you go to the shop, and Ron can probably witness that, a lot of young people working and a lot of girls working that people expect is going to be a male-dominated area, and not at all. You see a lot of young girls, young women, young men who you think, wait, you're a cutter, you're a tailor? Yeah, and they love it.
Do you think that you as a collector or collectors generally have a role in ensuring that those crafts endure?
You know, I think I never thought about it like that. But for instance, with Bernie, one of my kids, we've been for, gosh, now nearly 10 years since we both were spending time in New York a lot, been mostly collecting very young artists. And I think when you buy something, and this is something that Simon would relate to, when you buy something from a young artist, you probably don't realize how much it means. You buy it because you find there's something really fresh and amazing. But you're right, if we support at the same time, somebody's going to grow because of that and is going to be able to get to the next level. I don't know if it's a responsibility, but it's a nice side effect that I never thought about, but I'm happy that it's happening.
Thank you. And so I'd like to ask both of you, Ron, was there anything out of this project? I think in the past you've talked about, a space between our will and what really happens. Was there any part of this particular project which was a surprise to you, something which you might have taken away and learned from it?
Everything. It was, the best thing is when you get something in at night that you didn't know existed in the morning. I could not predict what is going to happen to this silly idea, walking in the street, and it would be nice to put a Morgan in the Royal Academy Summer Show. Why? I don't know, don't ask me. It's like, I just thought it would be good, because one of my first exhibit at the Royal Academy was the Fiat 500, if you remember, that is actually in Newlands House now. It was a piece called Blaming the Tools. It's something that was not designed as an art piece. It was the tool to make something else. But then it's amazing. It was made by both computerized cutting, laser cutting, that after we scanned the Fiat, blah, 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 and amazing Italian craftspeople. I can't remember, I don't even remember what question I'm answering now. But it is, you learn as you work, you learn, you're surprised. You do something and then you have the idea, I can do something else. I didn't know before I did the Morgan that I'm going to cover Mickey Mouse. with fabrics, because I did learn to enjoy. It is a craft, although it's computer, it is a craft. It is an amazing, it needs amazing people to translate sketches to a woven jacquard thing. And personally myself, in the early days when I taught myself to weld, the best thing about it was that it was crude, not like a craftsman. And then when we got better and better doing it, said, God, I'm not a craftsman. I don't have the temperament of a craftsman. I'll never be a good craftsman, and I don't want to be a craftsman. So I moved all that to craftspeople in Italy. And anyway, so it is, there was a period in the Italian design masterpieces that you could recognize. You look at a piece and you can say who the model maker was. That was done by Secchi. Before you can say it was designed by Albini, because the craftsmen, the people that made the prototypes and things, were the masters. And it is changing, but they're there.
Thank you, Ron. Simone, I think this is the first show that you have had at Newlands, which has been devoted to design, as it were. What was it that made you choose Ron?
Well, first of all, I don't consider Ron as a designer. I consider him as an artist. And the first exhibition I had the privilege of curating for Newlands House was an exhibition devoted to Helmut Newton, whom I do not consider as a photographer. I consider him as an artist. And what I love in what Ron has
I don't consider Simone as an auctioneer. He's an artist.
Yes. And what I love in what you, Ron, have been saying, and in what Pierre has been saying tonight, is you are all believers in eliminating boundaries. And I myself have always hated boundaries. And in market terms, I've always tried to blur the lines between these different categories, which for me are irrelevant. What matters is a creative genius. And what I love about Ron, he cuts right across all these categories. So he keeps surprising one. I mean, would I ever have expected him doing what he did now with Huntsman? No way. And that's what's so fun about him. So he's like a really young artist. And when Pierre says he likes to back young artists, I'm exactly the same. And for me, Ron is a young artist because he's constantly surprising you. Helmut Newton was a very young artist. I remember spending time with him when he was 80. Each time when I left him, I felt, my God, I'm rejuvenated, I'm re-energized. And that's the essence of really highly creative people like Ron.
Thank you so much. Pierre, just before we go to questions and answers, any surprises for you, or was the whole thing a surprise for you?
Well, I tell you, you were asking me first on the commission, and I must say, when we were all in the store and they moved the cover, I had never seen it, and I was with Ron, and suddenly you realize, oh my God, and then it was like, oh my God, it's even better than I thought. And that's where I thought, okay, that's a big win. And I tell you what I really liked, but what I was surprised, we didn't get more negative criticism because, the whole idea is to push the boundaries. And obviously we've not pushed it enough because there's not been a lot of people being upset. And, I love the idea of— Next one
will upset them.
Next one will upset them. But the point was really also, for me, it was important to show where you can take bespoke, where you can take draping, where you can take what a suit is, it's for a car. And it's kind of like pushing people to really realize, the row is modern, it's an art of this century, and there was nobody better than Ron. Ron, I don't know if I ever told you, but the first piece I got from you was one of your early subversion, which I love the idea because I got, and I saw it appearing, I must have shared that with the Newland guys, but yes, here we go. Now, that was the first Ron Arad piece that as newlywed we bought. it was a bed made out of scaffolding. Unfortunately, I know it's worth a fortune now, but I think between a couple of moves over the last 40 years, I think the moves I thought it was real scaffolding, and I'm not too sure where it is.
Can I tell you something? It's not. It is like scaffolding, but it's even better than that. It was designed. This cast iron clamps were designed in 1932 by someone called Gascoigne for cowsheds, to make milking parlors and cowsheds. That the partitions, not for scaffolding. Scaffoldings are cruder. So it was designed to carefully not hurt the cows on the way to them being exploited and milked.
That's perfect for a bed. Yeah.
Yeah, it is perfect for a bed. I have one here.
Oh, you do? I have. We were just talking. I'm not sure whether we still have it or it disappeared in mood.
But if you go, the rover chair that you have in Newlands House is made in the same day as this one. And
I know we missed that.
I learned how I can get someone to bend, to curve tubes in a circle, in a semicircle. So, and it's the same, exactly the same fittings that I used in the rover chair. I didn't know you had this.
Yeah, actually, I'm sitting on that now. That's the table where I do all my Zoom call. I was trying to get the one you did for the Pavillon Cartier years ago, and I couldn't find it. And then I found this on the internet, and I love it.
You know, it's called no waste table.
Yes.
Because it's just one piece as you buy it, and it's cut, and there's no waste. Nothing was wasted. Everything is there. So anyway, and it has a waist as well. Like I didn't know you had it.
Yeah, I love it.
Lovely. Let's go to the
That's a nice surprise.
Questions and answers. We have an anonymous attendee, nothing to do with Newlands House Gallery, of course, asking Simone, after the fabulous Helmut and Ron shows, what are the next plans for Newlands?
Well, that's still a surprise.
Oh, to you?
but maybe to me. But in any case, it will be announced in due course. And what the objective of Nicolas Jones and Khalid Al-Tajir, when they've started Newlands House as a cultural center, was really to show great contemporary culture and across all boundaries, as we've said earlier. So I'm sure that the overall exhibition program at Newlands House will reflect that philosophy and will show things right across all areas. And what is wonderful, I think, when the decision was taken about Newlands House, it was pre-COVID. And then, of course, COVID caught up with all of us. And in a way, Newlands House has proven to be really the avant-garde kind of institution for post or during and post-COVID times, because now we do like to go to the countryside, we do like to see an exhibition in intimate surroundings, and only 6 people at a time are let into Newlands House at a time. And so when you walk through that Ron Arad exhibition, you really feel that you live there, that it's yours, that you have it all to yourselves. And that is a pretty magic experience for any viewer. And then, of course, if you go to Petworth, you have all these other wonderful places like the Angel Inn, like the best delicatessen shop in the world, the Hungry Guest, and so on and so on. So for me, it's a revelation to discuss.
Seeing Ron's show, Simone, definitely, and whatever comes next. There's a wonderful question from Alessandro Tom, who says, Pierre and Ron, will you manage to convince each other to make a Saville Row suit cut to Ron's particular style, or a special stitched hat to add to his...
It's nearly ready. It's nearly ready. Don't tell anyone.
That's fabulous. It'll be your first suit then, apart from your birthday suit.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And another
Hi, Alessandro.
That's really nice. And another
Alessandro,
question.
by the way, is not here with the team, but he's the hero of this. It is creative matchmaking that introduced me to Pierre.
Yeah, he's behind on the picture there, in the middle.
Yeah,
Well, I hope we can post the suit when it's done. I'm fascinated to see the fabric.
Give us 2 more weeks.
2 more weeks, okay. How long does it take a suit to be made, actually, Pierre?
It typically takes 8 weeks minimum, unless you've been there before, and then they can take the risk of not seeing how it's going to drape on you, but count 8 weeks minimum.
Okay, thank you. And again, anonymous, I was watching your conversation with my 2 boys, aged 7 and 10. They absolutely loved the tapestry car and the squashed framed car. What is it about unexpected art in unexpected places in surprising materials you don't expect, made by people you don't usually see, that engages young people? Perhaps I'll hand that one to Ron.
No, I was going to hand it to Simone.
Oh, well.
Okay, Simone.
Well, the person who asked that question is referring to his or her children, and I always find fascinating to see how children react to art. I always took my adult children to exhibitions and museums. They were complaining a lot, but I loved their reaction. And now with my 9-year-old daughter, I do exactly the same. And it's just so extraordinary to see what they react to. And if the 2 children of this person who asked the question reacted so positively, that's again a sign that Ron's work is really fresh and appealing.
Actually, Ron, in one of your earlier clips, I think it might have been in the last conversation, you were showing a number of people who were responding very physically to your chairs, who were jumping on them. I think you had a choreographer on one of your chairs, and some very well-known celebs, I think, if I remember correctly. But have you ever allowed children to run riot in your studios and to interface with your pieces?
Absolutely. I think the best example is that the first ever rover chairs I had at home, and my 2 daughters jumped on them and kicked them, and the cats slept on them. And then when I exhibited it in the Pompidou Center, and I was the lender, and when we arranged the exhibition, I just wanted to move it half a meter from on the floor. I was shouted at, "Not without white gloves." and it is, yeah, of course. I mean, I think chairs and things are there to be used. It's like shoes. You can't keep the shoes always shiny and new. You have to walk in them, let them age. It's like us. We are, it's, yeah, children are, everyone's welcome to sit and to use.
And is that the case, Simon, at the show, at Ron's show?
You can use some of the pieces, some of the others, I'm afraid you can't, because they're in polished metal, and we do want to give them back to the lenders who have been so generous in pristine condition. So there would be the danger possibly of having some scratching going on, and so we hope that the viewers will understand that they can't use all of the pieces and sit on all of them.
Okay.
I try to, when I this is the first exhibition that I was a visitor. I was almost a hungry guest in it, because Simone did it, and yes, we lent some pieces, but mostly I was a guest in it. I forgot what I was going to say now, but. Yeah, I mean, it is, I never use, when I do things, I avoid pedestals. I think if it's a chair or things, let it be on the floor, not on the pedestal.
That's a very good point. I think when you go to Newlands House and see the show, even if you can't sit on all the pieces, it still feels as if this was your home. The art is not put on a pedestal. And what I love when I go to collectors, and this applies to Pierre, where I've seen how he lives with art. He does not put art on a pedestal. He really genuinely lives with it. And that's the whole point. That's the whole point of being with art, because it enhances our lives. And I get, in a way, put off when art is presented like in a museum, when it's in a...
And Newlands House is not a white cube gallery.
Right.
It's not. And yeah.
Yeah. Pierre, how long are we going to be able to see Ron's work at Huntsman?
So it's I'm just going to confirm it's going to be till at least the end of the Christmas holidays. There in the shop in front of it, and which is great because then the gentleman or the lady with the two kids can go and see that and will be welcome to come for refreshment at Huntsman. And I've been reading that question many times now because it's so interesting. And I'll just tell you a story. This is like probably 20 years ago because I was still carrying him, my middle son, Frankie. I was still carrying in my arm. So I don't know how old you need to be for that. And we went to Anthony Dauphin to look at, I can't remember what, but it was something very graphic, like a wall, or it was, yeah, something like that. And we went to the viewing room and I was carrying Frankie in my arms and I said, "You like it?" And he said, "No, but that one, yes." And both Catherine at the time and I, we looked at each other and he was looking at a black Roscoe, black over black.
Wow.
And we just were so extraordinarily surprised that he must have been 4 or 5. Yeah, because I was carrying him. And say, how is this appealing to a child? And I think we really, it must be because they don't have any preconceived idea of what art is, what's supposed to be, what material it's supposed to be. It's just, they're building their convention discovery after discovery. And I don't know exactly at what age that kind of stops. For some people, it never, either the Peter Pan or the sort of Steve Jobs type of people, but it must be that. But it's such an interesting question.
I think you're so right about that. I remember I was looking at Belinda de Bruyere work, whose work I absolutely adore. And then somebody said, you can't put that in the house because your children are not, they're going to have nightmares. They're going to be so scared. I kind of missed the boat a bit with that, I confess. So I still don't have Belinda's work, so much to my chagrin. But somebody's told me, and it really resonated with me, you know, they don't bring the preconceptions, the world knowledge, and the fear that we as adults bring into a room. And actually, I then put some pretty ghastly pieces in my home, and the children really didn't notice them at all. So there's a lesson to us all. Anyhow, we have to very sadly close. I feel like we barely touched on things with you, Ron and Pierre, but thank you so much. Thank you, Pierre.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Simone. And also thank you to Nicola and Maya for organizing everything. And I'm just going to hand back briefly to Nicola to talk about what's happening next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alison.
Thank you so much, Alison. Thank you,
Alison.
Pierre. Thank you, Ron. Thank you so much, Simone. It's been another incredibly fascinating webinar, and equally would love to have carried on for a lot longer to carry on talking about this. And it's been extraordinary watching the reactions of people coming in of all ages. The work is so stimulating to so many different age groups. I think the lack of intimidation of Ron's work speaks to people essentially. It's something really visceral. And the excitement that you work with textiles, you work with glass, you work with aluminium, you work with leather, there's no limit. And that is what is so exciting. And I see children and nonagenarians wandering around being thrilled by what you do. And that's very exciting to exhibit. So thank you so much. Our exhibition continues till March. We look forward to seeing you and hope you can join us for our next webinar with Thomas Heatherwick and Ron in conversation on the 9th of December. Thank you and good night.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Maya.
Thank you, Ron.